It's Fat Tuesday. We're heading into Lent, but we're also heading into the midterms. Pollster Jim McLaughlin's here to give us a read as to where we stand and what Republicans need to do to win. Welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. Let's get into it. All right, guys, it is Tuesday. It's Fat Tuesday. I don't know if you're trying to get it all in before Lent begins, or maybe you don't care, but I don't know. I've never been a big Fat Tuesday kind of guy. I was a little when I was in my 20s. I went down to New Orleans a couple times, but I don't know. I've just never seen the whole build up the way it should. But I've got a lot planned for Lent. Things that I'm adding, things that I'm giving up. Maybe we'll get into that at some point. But big show coming your way. The president's pollster, Jim McLaughlin's going to be with us. A lot to break down with him on where we are going into the midterms. I think you're going to be shocked by this conversation because the mainstream media keeps citing polls that aren't accurate, but they're doing it for a reason. And we all know this because they want to create a narrative. They don't want us to know that this is just part of the pattern. And it's obvious. It's not like they don't know because there are pretty big tells, and I think Jim McLaughlin will expose them. So if you want to get a better sense, a real sense of where we are, stay tuned for a conversation about that. The president, though, flying back from Palm Beach over last night to get back to D.C. and addressing the importance of what's at stake with particularly the SAVE Act. Take a look.
There's a movement for getting voter ID. They want voter ID. The population, 98%, want voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they want to cheat in elections. They also want other things. They don't want mail-in ballots. They want to end mail-in ballots, which is corrupt. And one other thing that they're insisting on is proof of citizenship. And the Democrats don't want to give proof of citizenship. They don't want to give voter ID. Think of it. Who wouldn't want proof of citizenship? I ask you, Steve. Who wouldn't want voter ID? And why would you want mail-in ballots if you know it's corrupt? It's a corrupt system. We're the only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots. Think of it. The only country in the world that has this system of mail-in ballots because they cheat. And the fact is they could never get elected if they ever changed. They know it. If you had voter ID, if you had proof of citizenship, they could never win an election. And they know that, and they're fighting to the hill. And I put this down with men playing in women's sports. I put it down with transgender for everybody. I put it down with their horrible open border policy as being ridiculous. They don't want voter ID. No voter ID. And I put that down in the same category with men playing in women's sports. I'm going to add a fourth category.
So it's not just that. They also have bad candidates. The president's absolutely right on that. What do I mean by that? Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the bartender who's well known for all of her deep intellectual thoughts, decided to fly over to the Munich Security Conference to take on and show that she's got the strong sense of where things are. She got asked some, I would argue, simple questions like about foreign policy, about basic foreign policy. Here was her question on Taiwan, and here's how she responded.
And to all of you, and Congressman, I'll start with you, would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word on that.
Yeah. So she screwed up the question about Taiwan. She didn't know what strategic ambiguity is. And then she screwed up that, trying to mock Marco Rubio by actually misstating how horses and people came to the United States. It's kind of funny. I mean, Rubio actually had said at the Munich Security Conference that the U.S. will always be a child of Europe, highlighting Christopher Columbus's voyage to the New World, the first English colonies, and the introduction of the modern cowboy from Spanish cultures. So she totally didn't understand actually how it all occurred. She flubbed twice, both not understanding Taiwan and strategic ambiguity, our relationship, how we would deal with any attempt by China to take over the island, or our own basic history. And she got mocked. And then she called the New York Times to complain about her coverage because, well, she face planted. But it didn't get much better then because Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan also tried to show up on the world stage and burnish her credentials. And this is how it went for her.
On Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador? No, please. I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, it is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
Yeah, do a better job. Governors don't know. You went to a security conference in Munich and you have no idea what victory in Ukraine looks like after you guys have complained about you. I mean, that's embarrassing. I mean, two of them are out. AOC can't answer basic questions about the U.S. or Taiwan. Gretchen Whitmer can't answer basic questions about where the U.S. stands with respect to what victory looks like in Ukraine. Embarrassing. And then Hillary Clinton, well, you might as well go 3 for 3. This was her face planting as well. Take a look.
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself after.
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, she goes over to try to take on Trump, and even the Europeans come to Trump's defense. It was pretty embarrassing. So 3 for 3, strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. AOC, Whitmer, Hillary Clinton. Unbelievable. Before I bring in Jim McLaughlin, though, I got to tell you, tomorrow's a great, great conversation with E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation, famed economist. Trump had nominated him to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're going to get a real sense of where the economy is as we head into the midterms. Thursday, an unbelievable panel headed your way. And then Friday, Benny Johnson is going to be with us. So we've got a great week. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe. Thanks to everyone who's gone out and bought Trump 2.0, my latest book that is on its way out. Go to Amazon right now. Please hit that subscribe. That subscribe. No, you don't have to subscribe to Amazon. You have to subscribe to buying my book, Sean Spicer, Trump 2.0. It's a great book, forward written by the President of the United States. Thank you for all of that. All right, before I bring in Jim, I got to tell you, the math for a lot of Americans just adding up. They go to the grocery store, they're trying to make ends meet, and they've got skyrocketing insurance premiums that are just making tough even for people with a steady job. Families are relying sometimes on high interest credit cards, and you guys know that's not a good cycle, right? And these high interest credit cards, President Trump's trying to do something about that by capping interest rates, but sometimes the interest rates are in the 20s to 30%. If you're a homeowner, though, I've got good news for you. My friends at American Financing have a solution for you because they're helping homeowners pay off high interest debt rates. They've got rates in the 5s right now. Their salary-based mortgage consultants don't push loans. They push solutions and exit strategies for you guys. So on average right now, they're saving everyone about $800 a month. You could be one of those people. If you are a homeowner, I'm telling you this right now, there are no upfront fees or obligations. You can talk to one of their salary-based mortgage consultants and find out how much you can save. So give the folks at American Financing a call, 1-866-891-7332. That's 1-866-891-7332, or go to AmericanFinancing.net/Spicer. AmericanFinancing.net/Spicer. By the way, you guys know my friends at Firecracker Farms, right? This is my favorite little cooking tool, the hot salt dispenser here. It's stainless steel. I love this thing. I cook with it all the time. Chicken, eggs, meats. It adds an unbelievable kick to everything. It's a permanent staple that I have in my kitchen when I'm cooking. And I'm a big omelet guy. I like to do a lot of stuff on the grill, whether it's chicken or meat. But I'm going to tell you something that I've never had another advertiser do. These guys have been with us for a long time, and they've done very well because it's a great product. And they said, Sean, I tell you what we want to do. We want to highlight a great organization. So they are a big dedicated supporter of Operation 300, and they want to use their time with me to highlight the efforts and the great work that Op 300 is doing. And this organization was founded by a Navy SEAL, Aaron Vaughn, in honor of him, who we lost in 2011. And while their primary mission is helping Gold Star kids, they've recently expanded to help Blue Star families as well, serving both our military and law enforcement. It's an unbelievable organization that's helping so many spouses and children who have been left behind after a parent has been killed in the line of action. So literally, if you want to do something, if you've enjoyed the prosperity or the fruits of this amazing country, built a great business, it doesn't matter what. You guys know our freedom isn't free. We're all beneficiaries because of the sacrifices of so many. So the guys at Firecracker Farm have asked me to highlight Op 300, op300.org right now. Every dollar that is raised helps ensure families know that they are not alone. Thanks to the folks at Firecracker Farm for helping to highlight the great work of op300.org. Take a look at what the great work they're doing. Please consider a donation. Without further ado, I want to bring in the President's pollster, Jim McLaughlin. Jim, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I need a little lay of the land. I need a little reassurance. Can we do that today?
Oh, I'm happy to give reassurance. And Sean, we got a long way to go from now until election day. It's going to be an eternity.
I know, but just tell me where, like, if like sort of as they say, if the election were held today, where are we in terms of presidential approval? What they think of the different issues? Like, what are the big issues that are popping? Where does everything stand for the Republicans versus the Democrats?
And look, on our latest poll on the Newsmax blog, we've got President Trump's job approval rating at 50%. When you talk to likely voters, you do a model of the survey where, you're actually talking to people that are going to come out to vote. Like, I was looking at the YouGov poll, the YouGov poll where they say, oh, Joe Biden was a better president than Donald Trump. Sean, you know what percentage of their sample actually voted for Donald Trump? 32%. That's it. It was only 30. I think that's the worst one I've seen. And so here you have this British polling company coming over here into the United States, trying to say this is representative of what's going to happen in the midterm elections. It's not even close. 27%, if you look at their top line data, say they're not even registered to vote. And that's what they're trying to pawn off on us as a political survey. So they basically undersampled Trump voters by 18%. So of course you're going to get these great examples. And I also look at, you got me going now, because I'm looking at the actual survey draft, and they've asked about 40 questions about isn't ICE evil and all this other. Oh, by the way, do you approve of Donald Trump? I mean, it's amazing what they went and did, and they're trying to say this is reality right now, and Donald Trump isn't a good president.
So when you guys did your latest poll, he's at 50%. What are the issues that are driving the conversation right now that people are saying, this is what I care about?
No question, affordability is at the top of the list. And we've been seeing that. Look, ever since inflation went up to 9% in a single year, under the Biden administration, it's been right there at the top of the list. What's nice to see is now the Democrats are actually saying inflation and cost of living is the number one issue out there. It's really nice that they're finally recognizing that. And they're trying to blame, and they're very good at it, and they have their media allies do it. They're trying to blame Donald Trump for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's inflation. And it's really important that we fight against that. And we just saw it in those governor's races last November in Virginia and New Jersey, where the Democrats, they ran as moderates. They told us, oh, Abigail Spanberger, she's a moderate. Mikey Sherrill, she's a moderate. Look what Abigail Spanberger is doing right now in Virginia. It's anything but moderate. It's the kind of agenda that would make crazy AOC proud. I mean, basically, what is it? I saw somewhere somebody said she wants to raise over 100 different taxes on the residents of Virginia. That's just crazy when affordability, cost of living is the number one issue.
Yeah, I'll go down the Virginia rabbit hole right now. I was going to stick with the president, but since you opened that door, and I live here. But here's the thing that people miss about what's going on in Virginia. When Abigail Spanberger put her hand up to become governor of Virginia, she was handed by Glenn Youngkin a multiple billion-dollar surplus. So they went and said, we've got plenty of money. Let's go raise taxes on Uber deliveries, event fees, concert fees, dog walking. I mean, think about this for a second. Like, you want to talk about affordability, Jim. You're taxing dog walking. You're taxing concert going, events, club memberships, gym club memberships. Like, I just, so the question that sort of, like, in some ways, I'll give them credit, which is, hey, we said whatever we had to say to get elected. And this brings me back to what we need to do. So instead of being pissed at the folks in Virginia, and I live here, I'm going to suffer through this. Okay. And we can talk about this, but isn't there a lesson for us, which is, okay, guys, these guys went out there and paraded themselves around as moderates. They sold everyone in Virginia and New Jersey a bill of goods. And now we're dealing with it. But shouldn't we, on our side, as we go into a midterm, maybe take a page from their playbook and say, fine, let's go out there and sell everyone, although we won't have to lie about it. We could just be honest about what we're going to. But, like, what do we need to do? Because I feel like there's a lot of voices in the Republican Party that are bedwetting. They're like, oh my God, like we're not winning. We're not doing enough. Like, what do we need to do, if anything, probably is the best way to put this, to make sure that we walk out of November victorious?
We've got to go on offense, and we've got to get in campaign mode sooner rather than later. Look, we've got I work for several battleground Republicans, and you know how I hear all this stuff all the time. Oh, the Democrats have no money. They've already attacked these battleground Republican candidates with millions upon millions in negative, dishonest ads. You know, they're saying our guys, our gals in these battlegrounds, they're sending out mail, they're running cable TV, they're running digital ads, and they're saying that, oh, they voted to cut Medicaid. They didn't vote to cut Medicaid. They're actually increasing Medicaid spending every year. What they did do was say, okay, we don't want illegal aliens to have Medicaid. Look, we don't have enough money to fund Social Security. We don't have enough money to fund veteran benefits. And these folks are actually giving welfare benefits to illegals. We need to push back on all that stuff. And the good news, there's two things that are really in the Republicans' favor right now. The first thing is this: in a lot of these primaries, in these battleground seats, what we're seeing is these AOC type, they're not even liberal Democrats. These are socialist Marxist Democrats, Mamdani kind of candidates. And you look at New Jersey 11. Now, that's a tough district for Republicans, but who won the district? Basically, the Mamdani AOC candidate won their Democratic primary. And that's happening all over the country. The socialists have taken over the Democratic Party. We need to let the voters know. These are the people that want to give us the largest tax increases in American history. These are the people that want open borders. These are the folks that are putting criminals, giving them more rights than the actual victims of the crime, of good law-abiding citizens. We need to get into contrast mode right away. And all those good things that were in the one big beautiful bill we're now calling the working families tax cuts, that's going to come back to haunt the Democrats because they voted against military funding. They voted against making it more affordable for child care funding. They voted for higher taxes on Social Security, higher taxes on small businesses. Look, basically, if you live in some of these battleground states, especially where they have high state income taxes, they have high property taxes, you're voting for a $4,000 or $5,000 a year tax increase on your constituents. That's the fight we need to have with the Democrats. And as you said, Sean, we need to just tell the voters the truth, but we have to be aggressive about it.
You talk about being on offense and aggressive. I agree with you 100%. I just don't see anyone doing it.
Yeah, no, you're right. We have to. There's some that are doing it. They're out there every day. You know, I work for Mike Lawler in New York 17, and he's the one guy who I think might work as hard as Donald Trump. I know that's almost an impossibility, as you had to deal with when you were working in the White House. But he's out there every day talking about the real differences in the candidates. And another good issue related back to, say, Virginia and New Jersey. Look, in New Jersey, Phil Murphy and the Democrats, they closed down 6 energy plants. And you want to know why utility rates went up like 30% in 1 year in a state like New Jersey? They were closing down clean natural gas plants. By the way, in Europe, they tell us natural gas is a clean energy, which it is clean energy, but the crazy wacko left wants to close it down here. They closed down 6 energy plants, and they went and threw like billions into windmills off the Jersey Shore. And and they blame the Republicans for rising utility rates when it was them.
I get such a kick out of this. Phil Murphy closes 6 energy plants, and then Mikey Sherrill on day 1 says, I'm declaring an emergency on energy. And it's like, wait a second, you guys created the emergency that you're solving. Like,
exactly right. It was all of their policies that did all this stuff. And you're seeing this in all these states. And what's happened is, like, in the red states, I think Stephen Moore and the Committee to Unleash Prosperity did a great study on this. Energy rates, gas prices in all the red states, pretty much, they're all going down. But what's happening is, in a lot of these blue states, the energy prices, the utility rates are going through the roof because of their crazy anti-energy policies. And all these people are saying, and what Lee Zeldin and President Trump did last week, where they're saying they're getting rid of all these regulations, which isn't only going to bring down the cost of energy, it's going to bring down the cost of cars. It's going to bring down the cost of all manufacturing because it's going to be cheaper to manufacture and produce energy. But you've got all these Democrats, they're fighting them tooth and nail on this kind of stuff. None of their stuff works. And what's even worse about the Democrats, all of their solutions actually make our biggest problems worse. And the other thing is this, we've got to be careful about, even though the president has incredible successes, whether it's on the national stage or whether it's domestically, we got to be careful telling people that everything is just great, because it's not, because we had so many problems that President Trump had to inherit from Joe Biden. Now, he's doing an incredible job cleaning up the mess, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree that people want more to be done. I think they give him credit for a lot of what he's been able to do over a year, but that doesn't mean that the job is done. They still go, but Biden made it. Like, it's better under Trump, but it's still not to where it was when he left office the first time. But here's the thing that's fascinating, and is you look at Virginia, you mentioned that, right? So these guys run as moderates, and then the first thing they do is talk about like massive tax increases. You got Mikey Sherrill, who runs in New Jersey, as you point out. Phil Murphy closes energy plants. Their rates go through the roof. She comes in and says, I'm declaring an energy emergency, as if her party had nothing to do with it. I will, again, like, I just got to be honest, like, they're winning. Like, they win that special election in Texas. So their tactics, now they're not telling the truth, but what do we need to do? Because part of this is, I get your point. I agree with you 100%. Be aggressive, be on offense. Don't wait for the end. But it's like, what are we not doing right? Because if you look, if you're the Democrats, yes, they're cheating about what their record is. Yes, they're spreading misinformation. Yes, they're lying. But the reality is, at the end of the day, in the game politics, it's all about winning. What are they doing right, and what do we need to do to adapt? Because it seems to me that we can point fingers all day long and say, they lied, they did this, but they go, guess what? We won.
Yeah. You know what? What we got to do is, and look, we have to do the governing part, and we have to be able to show the voters results. And no question, we have to do it. I think that's been one of the things. And look, what is President Trump inherited this mess, whether it was domestically, whether it was on the international stage, and he's out there every day solving problems, solving issues, bringing peace throughout the world, giving us more and more prosperity. But we need to go out there every single day. And this is especially those members, whether you're running in a battleground Senate seat or you're running in a battleground congressional race, you need to start running now. You need to, because look at the current government shutdown that's going on. What is this? The third government shutdown we've had? And it's all about politics with Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is afraid of his radical left-wing base. And the crazy part is, again, talk about Democratic lies. What are they doing? They're telling us that this shutdown is about trying to get ICE under control. ICE is fully funded, whether they like it or not. It was already funded back in the big, beautiful bill. They're not hurting ICE, but what are they hurting? They're hurting the FAA. They're hurting the Coast Guard. They're hurting other branches of the military, not to mention they're hurting TSA. So who are they hurting at the end of the day? The American people. But with them, it's all about politics. We need to keep pointing this out. Now, eventually, last time, they stopped the Schumer shutdown because they realized it was hurting them. And by the way, Chuck Schumer, he's the most unpopular politician in the country right now. And I'm not including Nancy Pelosi in that mix, but his negatives have gone up significantly because what's happened with him is, whereas Donald Trump is his base loves him. We all see this in all these Republican primaries, all these candidates, they're all begging for Donald Trump's endorsement in the primaries. But Chuck Schumer, he's got negatives, not just among Republicans, not just is he upside down with independents, but a substantial portion of the Democratic base doesn't like him because he has no principles. He's got no core beliefs. I don't know what he's going to do to get out of this shutdown because it's kind of a joke, and he doesn't have a real reason for being in this shutdown. The last shutdown was they wanted to give taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal immigrants. And now he's saying it's about ICE, but it's not really about ICE. ICE is funded for the next 5 years. It makes no sense. And the Republicans have already said, hey, we're going to give you body cameras. This was already negotiated from what I'm told. But then all of a sudden, you had Chuck Schumer, because he's scared of the AOCs of the world. He went and moved the goalposts again, not just on the Republicans, but he moved the goalposts on the country.
You know what's funny? When you said that, like a little snap went off in my head. There's a through line. Chuck Schumer shut down the government the first time because he wanted to defend benefits for illegals. And this time, what is this really about? It's not about ICE. It's about making sure that we can't deport people who are in this country legally. Over and over again, right? Think about it. Over and over again, it's Chuck Schumer defending the rights of people in this country illegally over American citizens. Maybe that's our new theme.
Yep. And you think about what just happened in Minneapolis, what the press doesn't want to talk about. And look, anytime there's a loss of life in any kind of law enforcement activity, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that to happen. But what they're not telling you about is 4,000 pedophiles are now in custody. 4,000. Think about that. Child molesters, pedophiles, rapists are now in custody. By the way, you know what they also found? 3,300 children. They found 3,300 children. Remember, the press doesn't tell you about this. Over 300,000 children were lost during the Biden open borders policies. And some people say it's as high as 500,000. And slowly but surely, folks like Tom Homan, that was one of the big promises he made right afterwards. And now you've got the Democrats are celebrating. Hey, we made them retreat out of Minneapolis. You know who the losers are there? The losers are the people in Minneapolis. And your point, you're exactly 100% right. This latest shutdown, they are trying to protect criminal illegal aliens. That's where the Democrat Party is. And it goes back to, we've got to tell the voters about this every single day, because you know why? The mainstream media is not going to do it.
No. And that's the point. I think that too many times, guys like Lawler are hustle, and there's no question about it, right? But so many of the other guys think that Donald Trump's just going to do it for them. And that's the problem. They're not willing to fight for themselves. And that's the big, thing that I think is an issue. But let me ask you, since we're talking about the shutdown in ICE, Democrats clearly think that this issue of ICE and overreach is a big deal for them.
Yeah.
It's their new.
It's their new defund the police, and they're trying to say.
But are they? But what are they seeing that gives them hope? Because I got to think that they're seeing something in their polling that makes them think that this is a winning issue. Or to your point, is Chuck Schumer misread the room on this?
You know what I think it is? I think it is it's the woke radical cancer in the left wing. Because go back to Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, the woke left wing mayor of Minneapolis, who, by the way, didn't grow up in Minnesota or Minneapolis. He grew up in the Northeast with the rest of the liberals. He barely won his election last time. And the reason he did was he made a lot of deals with the local crazy leftists. So he knows that's the base. Minneapolis is a very liberal, very progressive city. And that's why they're kowtowing to that base. And then you've got Tim Walz, going along. Then you also had, the scandal of them literally wasting billions of taxpayer dollars and giving them to illegals. Hardworking Americans were losing money. And by the way, it was money that was supposed to go to things like childcare and veterans benefits in Minnesota. And they're using it to buy off illegal aliens and literally buy off votes. That's how crazy it was. And look, the radical left, the American people, the majority of Americans, whether it's my surveys or other surveys I've seen, if you ask the question properly, they do not want ICE abolished. But the radical left-wing base does want ICE abolished. And I think, by the way, Tom Homan, I think, did a terrific job. We need to get him out there more because he explains it in a very calm, in a very artful way of the importance of ICE. And you have somebody like Tom Homan. Here's a guy who was winning awards and being applauded by Barack Obama, of all people, because of what he was doing to keep the American people safe. And what this just goes to show you is it's true. The Democrats want open borders, and they want to try to import voters in from other countries because they know their ideas aren't selling with the American electorate.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. First of all, it's funny you bring this up. The other day, I had Brent Buchanan, the president of Signal Polling, and he was he was saying the mainstream media is lying to you about what people actually think about ICE. But the thing that was interesting when we really dug into the crosstabs, Brent said to me, do you want to know what the real problem right now is in terms of voting bloc? It's single women, single white women. He goes, that's who's driving this. The younger the single white woman is, the bigger of a problem. The older it becomes less of a problem. Is that something that you guys see as well? That this really comes down to, it's not just even the left, it's single white women. And his whole point to me was, hey, Sean, the next time you see a big protest in Minneapolis, look who's there.
It's single, white, highly educated women, which is the other scary part about that, is because they believe a lot of the nonsense they're getting at these elite universities. Like somebody was just telling me, over 90% of the college professors at the Ivy League schools are registered Democrats. And that's who it is. And what happens is we've seen this in polling for years. The difference between younger single white women and married women with children. I mean, married women with children, in a lot of ways, they are the true swing group in this country, and not just white married single women, white married women with children, Hispanic married women with children, black women with children. Those are the folks that increase their vote percentages for Donald Trump, because what happens is once you start having kids, you think about life differently. Life gets really affordable. Kids are expensive. So obviously you care about economic issues, but it's also you want them to be safe. You also want them to make sure they're learning age appropriate things when they're in school. Voters change, and we see it happen all the time once you have kids. I would say one of the best things that ever happened to me as a pollster was actually having children, because my views on the world change, and we see it all the time among voters.
So aside from trying to get them married and have kids, is it a lost hope to go after them, or should we try to message some of these women differently?
Oh no, I think what we have to do is we have to go out there and start contrasting, because the Democrats have a real problem, and a lot of it was truly on display at that Munich security conference out there when you saw, whether it was Gretchen Whitmer, and I know AOC's gotten a lot of attention, and you've got you have Gavin Newsom out there. One of the things I think people are really missing about how bad the Democrats were over there was they're not held accountable by the media here. They don't get asked tough questions. AOC, she goes on Meet the Press and she goes on MSNBC. She doesn't get asked hard questions like you're asking me now. And you see what happened. Like Gretchen Whitmer, she's supposed to be one of their rising stars. And she just looked like, talk about the deer caught in the headlights. So what we need to do is go out there. Look, we want to talk issues with the voters. We want to talk about how we're going to make things more affordable, improve the cost of living. We want to talk about how we're going to make people safer. And I think the other issues here, especially to deal when you're talking to younger women, when you're talking to married women, it's the issue of healthcare. Believe it or not, most people, you're not going to know this because the press didn't tell you this, but John Carney did a great piece in Breitbart where he talked about how health insurance premiums are actually down 2% over the last year. Now,
really?
It's still, yeah, people don't know this. It's still too expensive, no question about it, but prescription drug costs are actually coming down. Why? Because President Trump fought for it. And if you remember, when you and I were working together back in 2002, we defied history. We actually picked up seats. What did we have to go to the voters with? We had a prescription drug benefit that we added to Medicare to make their prescription drugs more affordable. One of the biggest mistakes we make on healthcare, we have some really good ideas about making healthcare more affordable. We don't talk about healthcare unless the Democrats make us and unless the media makes it. Our folks, it's another issue we need to go on offense, because if the Democrats had their way, prescription drug prices would be going up even more. Their health insurance and healthcare costs would be up even more. Those are the kinds of issues we need to contrast, and those are the kinds of issues we can get married women, we can get these younger single women with.
I totally agree. I mean, what President Trump has done through Trump RX and the Trump savings account again. But let me throw another two issues at you, and we'll take them one by one. There's a story in Axios that I thought was fascinating because you talk about how to get to women. And it says Maha's midterm election test. The Make America Healthy Again movement has the potential to boost Republicans in the midterm as long as it avoids blah, blah, blah. Embracing Kennedy on the campaign trail. So they whack Kennedy a little on vaccines, which whatever.
Yep.
But I saw the 60 Minutes piece over the weekend. What Kennedy is doing, I think, has the potential to really bring in a lot of moms with kids who say, I'm worried about ultra-processed foods and the crap that's going into my kids. And these guys get it, and they're taking on big food, big ag, etc.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's funny. I can't tell you how much when I go out with the kids and we're out with their friends at a restaurant and whatnot, and they'll say, Mr. McLaughlin, that's not Maha approved. I think Robert F. Kennedy has done a real service. And you look at even some of these polls, his numbers are pretty good, and they're good among women. He goes out there and he's talking about the whole idea. We all know these ultra processed foods, and a lot of these ultra processed foods, we didn't realize how bad they were, and we didn't realize some of these foods were actually ultra processed. He's done a great service for Republicans, and it's interesting because I remember when we were doing the Madison Square Garden rally for President Trump and we were all backstage, we had all these people back there. We had folks like Sage Steele, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. They were former Democrats. And they can go out there and they can talk to the Maha moms, many of whom may not agree with us on things like, maybe abortion, maybe on some of the other issues and whatnot, but they agree with us. And what President Trump and Robert F. Kennedy have done about people eating healthier, I think it's going to be one of those things that it may not be measured in polls, but it's been great for the country.
Totally agree. The other issue I think that Republicans should take up the mantle on is social media, and talk about the scourge that it is on the next generation of Americans. And I think the more that Republican candidates own this, I just think whoever grabs it first, I know Rahm Emanuel's been trying to do this, but I think Republicans should be the ones that lead the effort to protect kids in social media. And that will be another issue that can be huge with women.
Oh, without a doubt, because we all see it. We see what it does to the kids. I've got my kids. I got a 32, a 30, and a 28-year-old. And you know what my wife says to me all the time is, thank God we missed a lot of that really bad stuff when they were young on social media. And look, and it's so hard being a parent, and you've got to sit there and you've got to monitor what the heck they're doing on. So it is so hard. And I agree with you 100%. You know, look, Dina Powell, the new president at Meta, is a good friend of mine. You know what she is? She's the mom of 6 girls. You know, her and Senator McCormick. I actually have faith in somebody like her that she's going to make a positive deal. And I think, I think the social media companies, they know they have a problem. And I agree with you. I think it's one of those issues where we need to go out there, try to get ahead of it as best we can. You know, we're the party of freedom and whatnot, but I think we've got to make people, I think the more you just let people know about it, the more you raise the red flags about things like social media, I think the better off it's going to be for the country and also for the party. And I think Rahm Emanuel, you know, it's funny, Rahm Emanuel, here's this guy, he gets no attention anymore from the media. They used to love him back when he was Bill Clinton's chief of staff. But because he's the guy pointing out that the Democrats are too crazy, they've gone way too far to the left, he doesn't get any attention. It's going to be really interesting to see that dynamic play out in the Democratic primary for president this time, because the truth of the matter is, and when I point this out, people will say, yeah, you're right about that. You know, the Democrats haven't had a real Democratic primary since what? Going back to 2008. Think about this. They always lecture everybody on democracy and voting and everything else. They have not had a fair fight for president since 2008. Think about that.
Yo, it's true. They coordinated Biden. They pushed out Sanders. You're absolutely right. It's a good point. By the way, we just don't have time to get into it, but the faceplant that AOC and Whitmer did at the Munich conference is epic. I want to ask you about, go ahead.
You know what? I want to make the point too. And that's what AOC is the perfect example. To your point about social media, she's a creation of social media. Yeah. That's who she is. And she doesn't get asked the tough questions by real journalists. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. You and I, again, simpatico on this one, because I keep saying she's never taken, a proverbial political punch. She goes to Munich. They ask her a serious question about Taiwan. And that wasn't a tough question. What's our position? No. It's called strategic ambiguity. Not tough. They ask Gretchen Whitmer about Ukraine, and she says governors don't do foreign policy. Ambassador, she's looking at Mark Whitaker, and she's like, do you want to take the mic? They look like, dude, if you can't answer, those aren't tough questions. Those are questions. They aren't even tough. I got to ask you about Virginia and then New York quickly. In Virginia, we're facing this redistricting fight. It is what it is. But Virginia is now being redistricted from 6-5 to 10-1. They're doing this referendum in the state in April. The court is a bunch of wusses. And there's going to be this referendum where the Democrats have written a question that says that they are temporarily redoing the maps in the interest of fairness. If you were advising the Republican team, what is the message that we need to tell people this is ridiculous?
Yeah, the Democrats want one-party rule in Virginia. Because look, Virginia, as we all know, is purplish. But it wasn't that long ago when they had some really good policies with Governor Glenn Youngkin and the Republicans and whatnot. It's not New York. It's not a state like New York, which is no question. It's a Democratic state. But I think what you want to say is, look, they're not being honest. It's corrupt what they're doing. And, there's a lot of folks that say, look, it's not going to pass muster with the Supreme Court. But I always hate whenever political issues, especially a political issue that could cost us 4 congressional seats, is going to wind up in the hands of a bunch of judges.
All right. The last question I have, you kind of alluded to it, but you guys are known You really know New Jersey and New York really, really well. You mentioned you work for Lawler. Do we, after Elise Stefanik took herself out of the New York race, was it Bruce Blakeman, correct?
Yeah, correct.
The Nassau County
executive in Nassau.
Nassau County exec is the nominee. The president's come out in support of him. Do we? I know Kathy Hochul's been a disaster, but it is a Democratic state. Is there any shot at this race getting close, or is this sort of a tilting at windmills kind of thing?
I don't think there's any question. I think this race is going to get close because of the failures. And look, we're working for Bruce Blakeman. I'm a huge fan of Bruce's. He got 56% of the vote in Nassau County. Nassau County is a county that has 100,000 more Democrats than Republicans. And how did he win? He is everything that Kathy Hochul is not. He's a tax cutter, never raised taxes. He's made Nassau County a county which abuts to New York City. It is the safest county in America. The only way you win with 56% of the vote in a place like Nassau County is if you get a lot of Jewish voters, if you get a lot of black voters, if you get a lot of Hispanic voters. That's how you win. It's literally a microcosm of the rest of the state and how you have to win. So I am a huge fan. The last poll, it was a public poll that was out not too long ago. You know what Kathy Hochul's reelect rating was? It was in the mid-30s. That's it. Barely half the Democrats wanted to elect her. All the problems that you have in New York, it being unaffordable, it not being safe, she still is fighting to make sure that New York State is a sanctuary state. All those issues are back on the table. And the whole idea about the Democrats having one party rule and you have all the craziness with Mamdani in New York City. By the way, 500 kids just went and looted in the Bronx yesterday, went and looted a shopping center. That's the kind of stuff that's going on in New York.
So does Blakeman just need money? I mean, what's the obstacle of getting that out?
He needs money. And also Bruce he's a great campaigner. And again, talk about a hard worker. It's like whether it's a Mike Lawler or whether it's a Bruce Blakeman or whether it's a Nicole Maliotakis. Look, you got to be good to get elected as a Republican in New York in those kinds of districts. In places like Nassau County, he's really, really good. And he's also the type of Republican that is going to get a lot of Democratic crossover. He doesn't win with 56, 57% of vote unless he's getting about a quarter of the Democrats. That's just the math in a place like Nassau County. So he's going to have the ability to be able to not just appeal to Republicans and get them all out to vote. He's obviously got the support of President Trump, but he's going to have the ability to get crossover voters among Hispanics. And I bet you he's even going to get a large chunk of black voters who are sick and tired of the failures of the Kathy Hochul's, the Chuck Schumers, and the Mamdanis in New York.
Okay. Jim McLaughlin, always appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us. We're going to definitely be checking back in with you a lot in this lead up to the midterms.
This isn't work whenever I come on your show, Sean. It's like
Don't
talking
tell
about
your brother.
days.
Don't tell your brother. Say it's hard work. I'm busting my butt every day.
That's it. And now, by the way, we got to do the Spicer strategy that we used in 2002 to make sure we defy history. And we actually, instead of losing in the midterms, we pick up seats in the midterms.
Totally agree. See you soon, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for being with us. A great way to kick off the Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow with EJ Antoni of the Heritage Foundation. Please go to Amazon and purchase your copy of Trump 2.0 today. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.